The first stem in Core 1 and the 10th stem overall, it looks at two separate dot points. You can see them here on this page. The first one regards measuring health status. The second one looks at how do we actually identify priority health issues. So just having a look at this first dot point, it's basically an introduction to health research and data. And what this health research and data is called is actually epidemiology. And you can see down here we've got the definition of what does that actually mean. So within this dot point, firstly we look at what is the role of epidemiology. And you can see here, this is the information that gives us data such as how many people have a certain disease, what groups are most affected by that disease, is that disease actually increasing or decreasing in numbers. So we look at the actual trends. And we also look at, you can see here, the second part of the dot point is the various measures. And we've got 4 measures: mortality, infant mortality, morbidity and life expectancy. Now they are specifically mentioned in the syllabus, so obviously they are crucial pieces of information. So it's vital, first of all, that you know what they are, and secondly that you know how Australia rates in terms of all these different measures of epidemiology. So just over the page here, having a look at the different measures. Mortality is simply the death rates. Infant mortality is the deaths in the first year of life. Morbidity, the rates of illness and disease. And life expectancy, the average number of years of predicted life left at a certain point in time. So when you see life expectancy, it's generally expressed as what age you can expect to live when you're born. Okay, but obviously the older you get, the more your life expectancy increases. So someone who is 50 years old now, their life expectancy would be at a higher age than it was when they were born. And just this point here, this is sometimes given as a multiple choice question. The most important indicator of a nation's health status is infant mortality. That's pretty crucial for you to remember. A lot of people mistakenly say it's life expectancy, but it is most definitely infant mortality. Now, just looking at the Learn 2 for this dot point, there's 3 questions we need to consider. And to answer these questions, or by answering these questions, we actually work out what we do with this epidemiological data. Right, so what can epidemiology tell us? Who uses these measures, and do they measure everything about health status? In regards to what it tells us, we mentioned that before in the role. It tells us whether a disease is on the increase or on the decreasing in incidence and overall prevalence. It tells us who's most affected, so therefore we can allocate health funding to them or health promotion campaigns to them. And the people that use these measures are various health agencies. There's a pretty comprehensive list given in your textbook, but the governments use these measures because they need to work out who to give the funding to. And obviously doctors in certain communities use them because if people in their community are suffering from a particular condition, then they can look at what sort of treatment they can give, or also what sort of preventative measures they can undertake in their community. And do they measure everything about health status? That last question. Well, the answer is no. There's many factors that are not really considered. These are just pure black and white statistical data. Often this data does not take into account various socio-economic factors, socio-cultural factors that may affect certain population groups. So they are not the be-all and end-all of health status, but what they do give us is a black and white guide as to the level of health of a particular population group or a nation. The second Learn 2 states you need to be able to use tables and graphs from health reports to analyse current trends. So what that means is you need to be able to interpret graphs. And you can see the one we've got here on cancer, giving the death rates, which you can see expressed here on the left-hand side of the graph, gives the death rates for various types of cancer over the last 50 or 60 years, and that's a pretty comprehensive time period. So the wider the spread in time, then the better an idea you get of a certain trend in things. So you would need to be able to interpret what is happening with each particular type of cancer there. And there's quite a few of these in your textbook that we will look at and address in class. The second dot point looks at identifying priority health issues. So as you know, and as we're going to tackle in about 2 dot points time, there is 6 different priority health issues in Australia. And you're talking about cardiovascular disease, cancer, asthma, mental health conditions, diabetes, and also respiratory diseases. So as you can see here, I've mentioned this point is not actually looking at those particular health conditions. This is looking at how do we select these health conditions. So why is HIV/AIDS, for example, not considered a priority health issue? Okay, and the reason is that for something to be considered a priority health issue, it has to meet all 5 of this criteria here. So you can see it's very, very important that you guys can memorise these 5 criteria and actually then apply them to particular health conditions. Okay, so let's just looking at each part of the criteria. The first one is social justice principles. So you can read here what the definition of social justice is. All right. So basically we're saying if a health issue is either caused by or affected by or affected because some of these social justice principles haven't been met, then that is a large cause for concern, and that would therefore make that health condition considered a priority area. So it would meet this part of the criteria. Priority population groups. So in order for this part of the criteria to be actually met, you need to ask these 2 questions, and basically it's saying, is a certain group within the population affected by this condition more so than another group? And if the answer is yes, then the health issue meets this part of the criteria. The prevalence of condition, so how many people actually have this condition? Is this condition something that affects a large number of people in the community? And if it is, obviously, then that's going to meet this part of the criteria. That would be why HIV/AIDS is not considered a priority issue, because if you look purely at the numbers, there is not a lot of people with that particular condition. And potential for prevention and early intervention. This criteria, for that to be addressed, you need to answer these 3 questions. And basically it's saying if this particular health condition can either be prevented or it can be controlled through early intervention, then it meets the priority area checklist. Okay, if the answer to those questions is no, then it would not be considered a priority health condition. And the last point in the criteria is cost to the individual and community. So to meet this criteria, you need to ask the question, does the condition impose high or inequitable costs on its sufferers and their communities? And again, if the answer is yes, then clearly that particular condition would meet this criteria. And you can see here we've broken up the costs into costs on individuals, which includes the financial cost, physical cost, emotional cost, and also the costs imposed on the community, which we split into direct costs, which are direct in terms of money, and also indirect costs, which are costs which do affect things from a monetary sense, but not directly. It's through other ways that they affect things. So that's the 5 criteria that is used to select the priority areas for health in Australia. And also the first dot point was a brief little introduction to epidemiology and what role it actually plays in Australia.